So yeah, we're back with four prominent younger composers of Highland piping, Highland pipe music: John Dew, Ross Miller, Craig Muirhead, and Kyle Warren. Thanks again for taking the time, guys. Maybe the last part we talked about kind of that move or need for competition to be shaken up little bit with creativity. What about the competition in general as it ties in with the music that you create and creative trends? Do you see also a trend away from both solo competition and pipe band competition with pipers like yourselves? I know that you're all very involved in competition, but you know any thoughts around that? Maybe John, start off with you.
Well, I think what's kind of happening is you get pipers that just want to do different things. So a good example of that is Trist, and that is a pipe band at the end of the day. They're a non-competing band, and they put out pieces of music that are non-pipe band tradition. They're not traditionally pipe band stuff. I mean, I've not been to one of their gigs yet. I don't know if they've played an MSR, but the impression I get is that they're wanting to expand on how to use harmonies, how to use the ensemble to create levels and layers and different textures that isn't just a 5 to 7 minute medley or an MSR or a set of hornpipes, so it just kind of depends. And I think it's almost like the piping world is catching up with what's happening in the general world of contemporary music. And you go to the conservatoire and it's an amazing place, and you find out so many different ways to or directions that you can take your music in. And for me personally, it's one of those things where the lecturers are saying, right, I'm going to show you something that you've probably not heard before, and you listen to it and you're like, never would have thought of doing something like that. And then you think as an artist, right, well, maybe I can do this, take it in this direction instead. Or for me, playing in orchestras was always a highlight for me. And I was like, well, why don't we have that much orchestral pipe repertoire? It was like, well, it's not much has been written. So for me, it's like, okay, well, why not write some music that involves a string ensemble, bagpipes, or a brass quintet and small pipes, that kind of thing. Just about what you actually want to do with your artistry. I mean, there's loads of guys in my year and plenty other years that love pipe bands, did their research project on pipe bands with a view to going into teaching and continuing on that path of pipe bands. But everyone's completely different, and you can do whatever you like. And because we've got that course, you're able to explore. And there was a composer that I came across. She's from Iceland. I can't pronounce her name properly, but she's a cellist. And what she did was she had like a 10-piece cello suite that wasn't really a tune. It was more of a kind of soundscape, vibey type thing. And it was that way. It was like, right, well, why couldn't something like that be done with the pipes? And it's about being influenced by so many other artists out with the piping world, and you're influenced by them, and you go, right, I play the pipes, but I want to be involved in something like that. What do I do? And as a composer, you go, right, try and emulate what they're doing, what she did on the cello, on the pipes, create like kind of a base layer of something, build on top of it, develop it, that kind of thing. And another good example is Chris Stout. Like on him and Katrina Mackay's last album, there was pretty much every single track is just one tune, and they're all about 5-6 minutes. One of my favorites was a track called Time to Retreat, and it's just a retreat march, and they're able to, like I say, it's just one retreat march, and they got 5-6 minutes of music out of it. And it's that kind of thing. It's like, right, could I do that with the pipes? Or Ross Miller's going, how can we do more of that thing? How can we do more out with the tune or with the tune? It's just about your influences, and because we've been to the conservatoire, you're totally exposed to it.
No, yeah, really interesting. Craig, it seems to me like you work a lot with young kids, teaching them. Do you see their desire to be like, I want to play with Field Marshal Montgomery or something one day? Great ambition to have, but do you see it as a wider kind of musical ambition now from kids?
I don't think there's a trend away from aspiring to play with bands like Field Marshal and Simon Fraser and bands like that. I think people are realizing that it's not an exclusive thing, and that piping has just sort of exploded, and they can do everything. So the days are gone when you have to decide if you want to be a solo piper, or you want to be a bandsman or woman, or you want to be a folkie. And the guys on the panel today, my three friends here, are like proof of that, as far as I'm concerned. I'd love to see the competing bands, out of their comfort zone. I even think when we put on concerts as bands, we still kind of conform to some sort of, traditional idea of how a pipe band concert runs. I remember in the Energy concert with Scottish Power, I think it's 2011. I remember being really frustrated afterwards because we'd put our hearts and souls into this, and there's 100 musicians on stage, full orchestra, great stuff, really buzzing. And I got off and went to the bar, as you do, and someone said, "You didn't play a set of 6/8 marches." And I thought, "Are you kidding? Are you kidding?" But then I suppose the onus then comes back onto the composer there, because us as young composers, we've got to produce music that betters the 6/8 marches, those 6/8 marches that, some amazing tunes there, amazing music, and there's a reason people want to keep hearing them. So actually, as much as I was frustrated at that point, it is down to us to produce music that betters that in people's minds, isn't it?
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, Kyle, what about your own experiences? Do you think there's a trend away from competition, in general?
I think Craig makes that great point that you don't have to be one thing anymore. Similarly, though, if you want to get to the top of one of them, you kind of do at some point maybe have to go all eggs in one basket, perhaps. Of course, if you're at the top of the solo world, then I'm sure you easily can get to the top of the pipe band world at the same time. But they're different disciplines. It's like running a marathon or running 100 meters, in my opinion. They're different disciplines as well, But in terms of where's it going to go, or where could it go? I mean, I know Ross has also been over to France and done the Bagad thing, and I think when you have that opportunity to play, it's phenomenal. Playing in that style of competition and thinking about writing in that way is so different, and arguably to what a medley is at the moment. So when you one of the questions earlier about why do you write, and is it important to be for your music to be performed as such, I think they're the opportunities as a composer that you maybe look at and think, well, wouldn't it be great to have those opportunities in the future? So if pipe bands in the future were told to compete in a different element, if that came about, then of course you would. I would relish that, if you had that chance, if you were in a band that also said, well, hey, come on, try and help write some material here for this new idea or whatever. So I think, yeah, where it's going to go, I'm not quite sure, but I think there's a lot of interest in composing. There's a lot of interest in it. There's heaps of interest in the competitive side of things, and I would never want to see that disappear. But like we said earlier as well, with technology, I mean, if you're clever enough, I'm sure you can almost record an album at home on your own as well. So I think as more and more young people get inspired by not just pipe bands, but as Craig said earlier, it's not to say that people don't grow up and say, I want to play in that grade 1 band anymore. But for everyone that says that, probably 10 kids say they want to play in the Red Hot Chili Pipers. Now that band's going to be, there'll be a million pipers in that band if that's the way it goes. But, people are seeing different ways to perform, different avenues to perform, different music to play, different instruments to use as well. So it's a very exciting time when you think about it. I mean, again, going back to the lockdown, you get a wee bit stuck in your own house, literally, and you can't get too excited about some things. But when you actually, when you talk today to other people and you hear what everyone says, it's actually a very exciting time, I think, for music as well. And with the academy setting high standards, with players being able to go there and study at a recognized level as well. And the youth band, since its inception, has had hundreds of fantastic, what were boys and girls, who are now obviously men and women, came through that in piping and drumming as well, who have contributed to the scene in many ways, probably many unknown ways as well. So no, overall, it's there's a lot of positives to take.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Ross, you put out full length recording yourself. The putting obviously that's not competition. That's putting music out there. What about other moves away from the competitive side of things?
Yeah, I think, as the guys are saying, I think the competition thing will always be there, but it's just definitely that there's more opportunities and there's more knowledge of those opportunities. And there's also more just kind of knowledge about playing with other people. Like I remember growing up and the whole kind of playing in B flat with other musicians was like a kind of, oh, you can't get your pipes going in B flat, they won't sound right kind of thing. But now, like, because there's opportunities to try it, there's better quality of instruments and things, and things that help you to get that better quality of instrument. I guess it's so much easier for someone just to play in B flat with other people. And then you also as we kind of alluded to, the course is also giving us that kind of shared language with other people as well, in terms of like musically, I mean, shared language in terms of like talking about the keys that tunes are in and things like that. Like people that you'd be surprised how many people that play in the top level grade one pipe bands that don't know about like what key a tune is in, or why those two tunes sound good together, because you've changed key and you've got kind of like a bit of excitement. Like there's definitely lots of people who just play because that's what they're told to play, and it's great and that's fine. But I think as more and more people start to see different opportunities to play with other things, and even see, I was watching the opening concert of Celtic Connections the other night, which is online this year, and like you see, there's like Ross Ainsley was playing the Highland pipes in like the middle of like basically what was a chamber orchestra, in terms of there was it was like a kind of fusion kind of band, but it was like using the pipes. It wasn't the main instrument, and that's something that Kyle said, the bagad thing. The pipes aren't the loudest thing there anymore, which is, I guess, shocking. Like the bombards kind of take over that kind of thing, and the pipes are used in a different way to provide rhythm and textures and things that we don't really think about, because we're so used to, in kind of, I guess, our niche, as we talked about earlier, to like the pipe band is always just the pipes. Like, but you can do other things with it. It's just we've kind of not yet. So I think there's definitely going to be a move away from that, and there already is. And people you can have these portfolio careers now, and that's, people can be professional pipers, but you kind of teach, play, and like playing a pipe band as well. There's definitely, you can do multiple things.
Just thinking about it, it's almost 35 years since Don Thompson's Journey to Sky, with the 78th Fraser Highlanders. It's 35 years ago. And we do see, let's call it avant-garde composing that's happening. John Mulhern, Matt Welch, Lincoln Hilton, I think, could be put in that kind of area. Really kind of pulling experimental stuff into Highland piping and pipe bands. Where I think, John, you talked about it has to be kind of within a kind of idiom, in a concerts. Where are your thoughts with that? Like just really coming up with like stuff that shakes people up in an avant-garde kind of way. John, maybe expand on that a little.
Well, what I would say is, if you look at the classical composers, that if you take, like, say, let's talk about J.S. Bach and Mozart, they wrote very technical stuff, and they wrote stuff that was very pleasing to the ear. Then Beethoven comes along and says, right, I'm just gonna break the rules. I'm just gonna write what sounds good, and that kind of movement happens. And then you get to the turn of the 20th century, and you got someone like Debussy that comes along and says, right, why does it need to be a melody that fits within this mode? Why can't we use something like a whole tone scale? And you have the Impressionist movement, which is where all the lines are blurred, and they kind of bring an emotion. They're trying to convey an emotion in a deeper sense and a less literal sense. And it's about starting to create sound, a soundscape, a landscape, an emotion, rather than here's a nice melody that reminds me of a field. It becomes a lot. At that time, it was a lot more about this is how I'm feeling in sound. And lately, you've got a lot of people doing electroacoustic music, which is the exact same thing. And then throughout the whole of the 20th century in Western classical music, Schoenberg, Weber, Vaughan Williams, just trying to think of another couple, even Steve Reich to an extent, all these guys, what they're doing is the philosophy of composition turned from how well can you write a melody and harmonize it to how can we create sounds that haven't actually been explored, haven't been heard before, haven't been played in the concert hall. And Stravinsky's was booed off the stage. Now it's considered an absolute masterpiece. But again, when I first heard it, I'd never heard of that thing before. And the philosophy of composition has changed in Western classical music. And I think the piping community is starting to do that now. If you take Fraser Fifield or John Mulhern, they're starting to say, right, well, yes, they write tunes, but they also create soundscapes that you wouldn't have thought of, or you haven't actually heard before. They're a lot more unconventional, and that's more of what they're doing. Is more of an art. It is an art form, and if you listen to their albums, it is that. I suppose that is avant-garde composing, and they're not necessarily writing. There are tunes, but it's the focus of it isn't how well the tune is written. It's what they're doing around it, what kind of emotion and kind of feeling that they're capturing and putting on the record. And that to me is really what contemporary piping is about. It's about what kind of sound hasn't been explored yet and is getting put out there. So I think I think when people start to realize, rather than saying like, oh, this is a bit weird, they're actually going to go, well, actually, hold on, this hasn't been done before. They've kind of thought outside the box here. So I don't know why more people don't appreciate it as much as it should, because it is completely different. It's a total art form within itself.
So, Craig, maybe your thoughts about the audience, being more liberal eared, let's call it. Do you see that changing and maybe opening up for more kind of experimental stuff?
Yeah, I think as a piping community, we're a lot more open to listening to different things. As far as I'm concerned, anything that get someone excited about pipe music is good. So whether that's Lincoln, whether it's the Chili Pipers, whether it's Inveraray District, that it's all good stuff, and it's getting people interested. But I do think we are more open to listening to different things now. We've still got a long way to go. There's still lots more we can do with the instrument. But if you think about guys like Lincoln just now, the whole production he's putting on is just seriously impressive. So when I'm writing tunes, I'm writing little 2-parted 9/8 and 4/4, things that I like to play in recitals and little styles of tune that I like to play. He's piecing together lots of different lines going at the same time, using harmonies that actually pipers won't really be used to. Tunes in F sharp minor, for example. Some people use it now and again, but he's done a lot more of that stuff, just exploring harmony, which I really love to hear. So yeah, I'm all for people just doing what they want to do, and I think audiences are getting a bit more. Well, they're looking for the 6/8 marches a little less than they were back 10 years ago with the Energy concert, and they're open to hearing some new stuff. But you're still going to have, you're still going to have people who. There's a reason we all got into piping, and the reason we all got into piping was because of the tunes that we heard, the trad tunes that we heard. We got into piping for the Highland weddings. So, like I said before, we're going to have to go a long way to beat that stuff, because that's what we love. That's what the 99% of people who pick up the instrument love.
Yeah, interesting. Kyle, maybe, with the competition is going to stay around, pipe band competitions. Do you think, and solo stuff, do you think the onus is, as a listener, judges need to be more open-minded, or will that just gradually keep happening?
I think it will. And I think obviously, if I'm still lucky to be classed as young with these chaps, in 30 years' time I won't be young, and maybe people in my age will eventually become the judges as well, and our experience will impact us as the current judges' experience, which has probably been quite traditional over the years, and has really been the foundation of everything that we know, and everything that we love as well. So I'm always conscious, like with this debate, like we all want change and freedom in music, I think, and it's there in certain ways already, like, go and do an album, go and do a concert. I think competition is so good for many reasons, and a lot of it doesn't need to change. And there's room for some growth, because I call piping a sport when we talk about competition. Every sport develops, like the rules of soccer, as we have to call it for the global audience, change. Offside, that rule changes over time. It gets tweaked and gets developed. So maybe the medley is the opportunity that gets tweaked or developed, or element 3 comes in at some point. So of course, like, I think there's interest in that, and there's cautious interest, and rightly so, because there's, as Craig said it before, we all love a good Highland wedding, and that can't change. If the band's sounding good, then I can't argue with that as well. So there's room for it all. It's the niche within the niche within the niche again. You talk about these avant-garde kind of aspects as well. I mean, like, it's great. My concern is always, do people actually find it? There's more pipers in the world that don't compete than do compete. So there's more pipers in the world that probably, watch the Edinburgh Tattoo and enjoy that for what it is, and don't actually watch Inveraray and District win the Worlds last year or 2 years ago, So again, for as good as the stuff can be, the challenge will always be to get it out there.
Do you think, Ross, just on the topic of Inverary, or bands like that, is just as much as we expect judges to be open-minded, do you think, are the players more in control now to push forward, to persevere, to do some of this new stuff, to leave the judges no choice, but to, accept it as a new norm?
Yeah, it's definitely difficult, and I guess it's as John was saying about like talking about doing your research project. My research project was about the speed of March to Spade and reels over 40 years. Okay, which is very, very niche, and I spoke to lots of top pipe majors and judges and things about that, and the thing that always comes back is people kind of do what the people who are winning do, like they copy it. It's like a kind of imitation thing. So like if Field Marshal slowed down the medley, or sort of slowed down the march one year, like then everyone, and they won, everyone would then the following year slow it down, and then like the same again. It would just like kind of slow down. Whoever's winning by whatever trend, they kind of do that. So if we're winning playing exciting new different kind of music, then like great, other people might do exciting new different music, and then the next person will win, and then everyone will try and catch them. And and that's how it will change. But it's just a bit of a gradual change, and you could see it clearly in my research over that kind of 40-year period. But that's 40 years. It's age. Like we're never going to see it really quickly. But even in the time I've been playing, it's definitely, you hear the difference in medleys. Just kind of over the last 10 years or so, it's definitely a thing. So that's in pipe bands, and it's the same as John says in competitions. There's definitely more new tunes coming about. There's the set tunes were changed for the Pembroke even aspect of it. For the class competitions, it was like 20th century compositions and all these things that weren't particularly heard for years and years and things. So like it is moving. I guess we just need to move with it and hope that kind of everyone gets on board, and it'll all just move forward. It's about the tradition. Kind of you have to keep, as Craig said right at the beginning, it has to kind of keep innovating for it to remain relevant and a tradition, I guess, as well.
Yeah, really interesting thoughts, guys. I thought, why don't we conclude with a little bit of fun, a lightning round. If there were one tune, let's keep it to, pipe music, Highland pipe music. If there's one tune or composition that you wish you had composed, what might it be? John, maybe start us off.
I would have to say Learning to Fly by Dougie Campbell, and that's on Lauren McDougall's album.
Okay, interesting.
Check that out. And if anyone's interested in composition, check that out. When I first heard it, I had it on repeat for weeks. I just absolutely loved it. It's right up my street. So Learning to Fly by Dougie Campbell. Well, it's on Lauren McDougall's album, but it's by Dougie Campbell.
Cool. We'll check it out. Ross, what do you think?
I think one of these kind of 2-4 marches, maybe the Her Majesty's Welcome to the Invergordons. How was it called? Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II's Welcome. No, Invergordon's Welcome to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. There you go.
Right.
I never get that right when I say it in the competitions. It's that there's like it's a 2-4 march in D by John Burgess that's really good, and lots of people are playing it now because it's this. I think William McCallum introduced me to it when I was at uni, and he said it's worth playing just for like the last line because it's so good.
Yeah.
So, and I totally agree. I think it's one of my favorite tunes.
Interesting. That tune's been around for a long time, and it's just suddenly popped out. Craig, what do you think?
I think for me, it would be Pumpkin's Fancy, and the reason is it's still my go-to party piece tune. I love it. It's it just goes. It's just great.
Yeah, great composition.
Every time, and everyone that listens to it too, non-pipers as well.
And Kyle, what's the one tune you wish you had composed?
See, I'm going to say The Green Hills, and reason for it's not my favorite tune, but it is obviously a good tune. But it's just, worldwide, almost every piper in the world will know that tune. So I guess if we go back to the original, obviously as composers, God, if you could write a tune that almost everybody in the world picks up, then you're doing something right, So yeah, it's not my party piece tune, but I think the idea behind it, there's an ambition perhaps.
Yeah, great melody. All right, guys, really appreciate the time. The last three parts, really insightful stuff. You guys are doing great work. Thank you for your creative contributions. Thanks for taking the time to share your thoughts with the piping and drumming world. John Dew, Ross Miller, Craig Muirhead, Kyle Warren, four of the really top composers right now, and we'll look forward to hearing your stuff as it comes out. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.